Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be discussing Mbappe finally getting off the mark in La Liga and getting a brace in their winning game against Real Betis. We talk about Bayern Munich's start to the season so far. They've had a good start to the season. We'll talk about Newcastle being able to defeat Tottenham. We'll talk about Erik ten Hag and how his future is very uncertain at Manchester United. And make sure you stick around for the end of the show, where I'll be giving you my thoughts on some of the top headlines going on in the soccer world. Now, before we start off, though, if you've got a question during the show, we want to hear it. Your input is a big part of what makes this show great, and we thrive on your energy and insight. Whether it's a quick comment, a thoughtful question, or an opinion you just have to share, don't hesitate to drop it in the chat. Now, if you want to make absolutely sure your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easy way to do that. Use the super chat feature. Just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your questions. At the bottom of the chat box, send in your super chat. This guarantees that your message gets on the air. And it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. So we rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead, let us know what you're thinking. Hit that super chat button and let's keep the show as interactive and exciting as possible. And if you prefer, you can also go to the GSMCpodcast.net to tip, donate, and leave a comment or question there. We couldn't do what we do without your amazing support, and we're so thankful to have you as part of our community. We have to start off, though, with Real Madrid. They're able to get the win over Betis, 2-0 win for Real Madrid. Mbappe getting both goals in the 67th minute, getting his first goal in La Liga for them. Came through Madrid sort of in possession, trying to break down the Betis defense. You have a great, sort of flick on from Federico Valverde into Mbappe's path. Mbappe takes it on really, really well, handles it smoothly, gets that goal, and then the 76th minute, Real Madrid win a penalty. Vinicius hands Mbappe the ball, gives him the opportunity to get a brace. Great sort of character and boost to the team morale. He allowed Mbappe to take the penalty. 2-0 Real Madrid win. And it was overall, I have to say, watching this game through the first 60 minutes or so, it was a little shaky from Real Madrid, because there was pressure in this game, with so far the results that happened this season, and more drop points would have been really crucial there. And Mbappe up to that point wasn't really at his best. It was a nervy win for Real Madrid, to say the least. In those 60 minutes or so, I didn't really see Real Madrid getting the win in this game. I thought Betis would have enough to hold it on, but it just took a little bit moment of quality. The performance was not good. Was not perfect. It was not good enough for Real Madrid level, but the importance of the win is massive because, as I said, Real Madrid, so before that, were coming off 3 points or 5 points out of a total 9, which is not good enough for Real Madrid, but pretty poor start to the season. And if they were to drop points again in the first 3 out of 4 games, that would have been, that would have, made the mountain that's not a mountain, but it would have made it more difficult later on to the season. What this Real Madrid team needed to do is to start getting momentum, Mbappe needs to start getting momentum. He needs to fit with the front three better. They need to look more cohesive. They need to look more cohesive as a team. And yeah, it was a great it was an important goal. And then the second goal is kind of, insurance there. But yeah, it was we can't undermine how important this win is. This is a very, very important win. That was a very, very important goal. Betis, they defended really, really well. And they had some opportunities on the counterattack too. They were pretty dangerous. Just couldn't get that final finish right. Abdi Al-Zuli, the former Barcelona player. We know his sort of qualities. He's very, very direct, and he has pace, and has quality on the ball, dribbling. We saw him for Morocco actually at this Olympic Games, and he's a very good player, playing for Real Betis, as the number 10 for Real Betis, and he had two clear opportunities in the first few minutes or so that really could have, really made this a game a little bit different, because then it would have been even more pressure that it pounded on Madrid. Instead, he misses those. And Betis, they still managed to stay in the game through the first 16 minutes. They defended really well. Again, it took that little bit clever sort of play from Federico Valverde, that sort of back heel sort of magic to unlock the defense. And then on Rodrigo, he was playing through the right side. Mbappe and Vinicius, they were sort of fluid, alternating. But it just didn't look fluid in the first. Okay, they were fluid as in they were alternating positions, but it didn't look fluid in terms of, they both really struggled. And Madrid, they do need to, or Ancelotti, he does need to find a way to make it work. Even with Bellingham goes on, when he comes back, Bellingham sort of, he is a right-footed as well, so sometimes he would drift into that left-hand side to sort of create or to sort of be an option too. They need to find that balance, They need to find that balance so they can look more balanced as a front three. But going specifically to Mbappe had some good opportunities earlier on, couldn't finish them off. But you saw him, at Real Madrid. We don't see really as much verticality from Mbappe as we've seen passing the PSG so far. But in this game, we saw him make a few runs down, and we saw him a little bit more comfortable getting on the ball too, more, being more part of the game, which, sometimes the games kind of have gone past him so far in the start of the season. So that was good to see him get involved, to see him get touched. And for me, getting that goal is a goal that can, uprise his confidence, with the combination of the second goal as well. And the way he the way he scored that goal too, the way he took it on, it shows that there's, he has a quality player, and he, despite the, maybe the confidence not being there at this moment and being on poor form, he still has that sort of pure ability to him. If he's in those moments, he's still very, very lethal. He's still very, very dangerous. I did say yesterday that Erling Haaland is the best player in the world. And for Mbappe, to convince me that he is still the best player in the world, Mbappe, he needs to develop that sort of consistency that he had, in the World Cup in 2022. Prior to that, a little bit after that as well. Last year at PSG, he scored 27 goals in League One. But, it's League One. In the Champions League, he was pretty poor, I have to say. He had those 2 goals against Barcelona that helped them see it through. But apart from that, his general play, that Dortmund Champions League semifinal and the rest of the Champions League, he wasn't at that sort of level. So we need to see some consistency. We need to see him get back to his best, and we need to see him really be fit and firing. Now for Real Madrid, it continues for Real Madrid sort of this long season, and they'll kind of move on after this international break. Of course, that is a weird one. The September international break. They go to I believe they go to Real Sociedad at the Aniota. Real Sociedad right now not having the most greatest starts of a season for them. 1 win, 1 draw, 2 losses. So that's gonna be so it's not the most difficult game. Now they will have to go away, and Real Sociedad does have some quality, so it should be a test for them. But we'll see And then after that, Real Madrid, the Champions League campaign starts for them. The midweek games, they get to open up at the Santiago Bernabeu, going up against Stuttgart. In this sort of new Champions League format with 36 teams. So that's going to be very, very fascinating to see and very very exciting to see for Real Madrid. And yeah, again, what they need to do over this international break, it will allow a little bit of time for Bellingham, Danny Ceballos, who's not going to be, he just got injured recently. It'll be a week less, or he will be a week into recovery. It'll still take him about another month or two. He's with the ankle sprain. With Jude Bellingham, is give or take, they expected him back again at the end of September, so maybe they can ease him in after that opening Champions League died against Stuttgart. So what they need to do is get those players healthy. And Ancelotti and his staff, of course, they need to find some sort of system that it looks more fluid with Mbappe, Vinicius, Rodrigo. And if it requires taking out Rodrigo and bringing someone more naturally left-footed, which I don't think is the case. In this game, Rodrigo was playing on the right-hand side, and he was doing his job. It was Mbappe and Vinicius that sort of looked, I'm talking early on, obviously, that looked pretty unnatural. They couldn't really find that fluidity. It was them two. So, and whether or not Ancelotti thinks it is taking out Rodrigo and bringing in a naturally left-footed player, one that comes to mind is Ardegura, Brahim Diaz, that they have on the bench. Or is there a way that he can find some sort of mechanism to make that front three look more fluid than what it is now? And Mbappe, he'll be off going to France. We say Deschamps talks about the amount of pressure and all that is put on a player like Mbappe. But to be honest, the greatest of players always have ridiculous pressure. So I thought it was a lot of nonsense from Deschamps. Lionel Messi, think about all the pressure that's been put on him over the years. Cristiano Ronaldo, think about all the pressure that's put on him all over the years. Neymar, all the pressure that's been put on him all over the years. Top class players will get top class criticism when they don't show up, and they'll get top class praise when they do great. It'll be very, everyone will go crazy when they have good moments, and everyone will go nuts when they have bad moments. It's kind of what it is when you're looked at as that high of a player. And for Mbappe, I don't think the criticism really gets to him. I just think he hasn't been on his strongest form of late, and yeah, we'll see. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll talk about how great the start of the season has been for Bayern Munich.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we talked about Real Madrid. They got the win over Real Betis. We move on to talk about the start of the season, how great the start of the season has been for Bayern Munich. It's let's go to the statistics real quick for that game. Well, Bayern Munich, they were able to start off their campaign in the Bundesliga so far with 2 wins. The opening day win over Wolfsburg, which we talked about it. I talked about, some of the negatives. There were some positives in that performance as well, but I talked about the negatives because there were some big negatives that we've seen this past season, even this past couple seasons, but specifically with those players this past season. And I was very critical of that performance. And then today they came out against Freiburg, and they were able to win 2-0. Harry Kane's penalty in the 38th minute, and then Thomas Muller, touch of class, touch of quality, absolutely phenomenal in the 78th minute, coming off the bench. And Thomas Muller, I believe he became the most most appearances for a Bayern Munich player, something of that sort. Thomas Muller is an absolute great. He's a great in German football, in which he just retired recently. And he's a great for Bayern Munich. Absolutely sensational. He's been such a leader. He's been so pivotal. He's been so flexible in like being able to cover so many positions for them on the wing, as a striker, as a 10, as an 8 even. He's been he's been sort of the perfect player. They don't make them like Thomas Muller these days. There's not many players like that. He's a player that just has so much quality. Can do so many different things, has an amazing footballing brain that's allowed him to play as long as he has, and he's just been a great servant for Bayern Munich. And he came on, had a great touch, and got that second goal, and then you see that signature celebration, that passionate celebration from him. But yeah, Bayern Munich, taking on Freiburg, and I have to say, what a ridiculous starting lineup. This is a ridiculous starting lineup that Vincent Kompany, man, his name was blanking me. Vincent Kompany came out with. You had Harry Kane up top, Gnabry playing off that right hand side. Matthias Tell playing off that left hand side. You had Olise and Martial sort of playing in central roles. Pavlovic as really the lone midfielder there with Kimmich, Upamecano, Kim, Guerrero playing that back four. But to be honest, you had Kimmich kind of joining in midfield mostly with Pavlovic, and Upamecano sort of had to cover the right hand side with Serge Gnabry dropping back a lot. Serge Gnabry did a lot of work playing on that right hand side because he was essentially the right winger and the right back. And then Kim and Upamecano were sort of opened out wide, and Matthias Tell, he was kind of operating as a left forward, left midfield, sort of with Guerrero being behind to protect, to be the left sort of back. It was sort of weird way. They didn't exactly play how they lined up, but what they did is play an extremely attacking lineup against Freiburg that left a lot of space open, but they were able to get that done against Freiburg. Freiburg they started off their season opening days with a win. This past season they finished 10th place, so it was not the weakest of oppositions that they were going up against. But I do have to say, Freiburg did have a little bit quality to be able to get that and play that initial ball, to get past that initial press. There was so much space there for Bayern Munich, for Freiburg to attack. They had so many situations. And by the way, Kim and Upamecano are not the most strongest of center backs. So there was a lot of spaces to attack those center backs that are really on poor form over this past year or so. But Freiburg, they just couldn't get that initial ball right. The Bayern Munich press was really good, and it was a comfortable victory in the end. Bayern Munich did dominate a lot of the possession, didn't create as many clear-cut opportunities I expected them to with this really attacking lineup. And that attacking lineup, Matthias Tell didn't really operate, didn't really do much from the left-hand side. Serge Gnabry, he couldn't give you much of an attacking outlook because he was asked to do so much work. He was asked to join an attack as a right winger. He was asked to, come back and defend for the space left by Kimmich who went into midfield. He was asked to do a lot. Elise, he got the ball in certain areas, was okay. But overall, I have to say, Bayern Munich, they played really well, but there was a lot of space in that back line to take advantage of, and the better teams will take advantage of that. Now, is this sort of company wanting to try out new things to see if this team is capable of playing like that against sort of the weaker oppositions before they take on some of the real tests? I guess yes, maybe, but still, it's something to question on, because going back to that opening day, Bayern Munich defensively very weak once again, giving the ball away out of the back, not taking up the right places in the pitch, allowing runs to go in, and not really tracking the runners. Just defensively poor showing from them in that opening day and against Wolfsburg, and in this game, they didn't really have to do much defending as a back unit because Freiburg couldn't really get out of the initial press, and the few opportunities they did, there was a lack of quality in terms of Freiburg in their in their attack, and look, the most important thing right now, early on the season with the new manager, with Vincent Kompany trying to find new things, is the results. The results, 2 wins out of 2, 6 points, which is good. You'd already see Bayern Leverkusen, who are one of the favorites, one of the favorites to win Bundesliga, if it's not Bayern. They've already dropped points. In fact, they were lost to Bayern Leverkusen. And it's the most important things early on the season with the new coach is just getting the results. But when you see some of the similar patterns that you see the previous season, you do have to ask questions. Jamal Musiala, man, I just have to say, what a brilliant player is Jamal Musiala. Brilliant player. Now, Olise looked decent. He looked lively. But, both of them weren't really able to finish their chances. But Musiala, he's such a brilliant player. I think I enjoy watching him most play in football right now. I mean, just his ability to play in tight spaces, the way he dribbles the ball. I don't think I've ever seen anything like. I mean, yeah, I have. I've seen Neymar. I've seen some brilliant dribblers. I've seen Messi, but he's up there though. He is a great dribbler of the ball. He can control the ball almost. It's like he's controlling the ball with his mind almost. That's what it seems like, because the way he plays in sort of tight spaces is just unbelievable. This was Bayern Munich in the first half, they were decent. The second half, it was a more controlled sort of performance for them. Eventually, Serge Gnabry was able to find Thomas Muller, who had an amazing control, and then smashed it past the goalkeeper to make it second in his record appearance for Bayern, 710th appearance for Bayern, and Thomas Muller speaking after the game. By the way, this is Muller's 150th career Bundesliga goal, which now he becomes the 17th player to do that. When speaking about the game, Thomas Muller said, "A brutally beautiful goal. I told the fans on the fence after the game that they should work hard this year because they need a few days off. We've got big plans this year." That's a lot to say. Thomas Muller, and it shows the confidence that he has in this Bayern Munich team. He thinks that this team can do some real things this year, and I have to say, I applaud that confidence. But if they don't fix those issues defensively that they have, and if they leave that sort of space that they left defensively in this game, in games against better teams, they will get absolutely fried apart. They'll get fried apart. Hansi Flick, you see him at Barcelona. what you see at Barcelona is they have some space, but they play a high line, but they're still able to defend really, really well. When Hansi Flick was at Bayern, despite the fact that they had a lot of space that they left open in transition, they were able to defend really, really well. Can Vincent Kompany sort of, take what Hansi Flick did defensively at Bayern and sort of replicate that into this team? That's the big question to be asked there. But overall, it's been a good start of the season for Bayern Munich. But obviously, there's steps that they need to take, and they have this sort of international break for Vincent Kompany and the background staff to figure it out more. And I look forward to seeing them continue on this season. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll discuss Newcastle defeating Tottenham 2-1.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we talked about how great this start of the season has been for Bayern Munich. We move on to react to Newcastle defeating Tottenham 2-1. It was a fascinating game. Tottenham, as always. My British accent is horrible, but Look, it's very disappointing for Tottenham because I have to say they were the better team in this game, and it wasn't particularly close in terms of general play, in terms of possession, in terms of creating good chances. Tottenham, the statistics show it as well. 20 shots for Tottenham to 9 for Newcastle, 6 shots on target for Tottenham to 3 shots on target for Newcastle, 66% possession for Tottenham to 34% Newcastle. But Newcastle were the ones that were able to get the win 2-1. Opening, half, Tottenham played really, really well. Had some very, very good possession. Created some very, very good chances. Didn't have that final touch to put in the back of the net. And then you get a moment of quality from Harvey Barnes out of nothing. And Newcastle go into halftime 1-0 up. Then Tottenham were able to get equalized through a Dan Burn own goal, and then they continued to create a lot of chances to control possession, but they couldn't get it to go. And same sort of story, Alexander Isak against the run of play. Newcastle are able to burn Tottenham's very, very high line, and Alexander Isak, with his quality, is able to get the second goal. And they won 2-1. And I have to say both goals were extremely against the run of play. And it's sort of the same story as Tottenham in that Leicester opening day disappointment where they drew 1-1. Despite all the sort of possession, the amount of chances created and, how well that they played, they just couldn't get the ball in the back of the net. Now, that opening day game, with the Dominic Solanke, his playing his first game for Tottenham, he wasn't horrible or anything. He just couldn't get the ball in the back of the net. It happens. And in this game, he's not available. He's out for injury, and they sort of play Kulishevsky kind of as a false 9. Was Odebelt played on the right, and then Heung-min Son on the left-hand side. And then also another big loss that Tottenham had this game is that they didn't have Van de Ven, who, with how ridiculously high Tottenham play, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, and Postecoglou has a way, and he does not refer to any sort of plan B, which I understand. The top managers, they don't go with plan B, they always make plan A better. But when you don't have Van de Ven, who is your sort of center back to get you out of scary situations with the pace that he has to recover, defensively they're not as solid playing in a high line. Now, Dragusin, the Romanian international, he's not a bad center back. He has some quality. He's a good player. But in this sort of system that they play, Tottenham, with how high of a line that they have, I mean, you need that pace that Van de Ven provides. And defensively, they look to shambles in that final goal. There was no communication from Romero and Dragusin, the rest of the back line. He's sort of trying to play them on while, look, I'm going to go and break down that goal specifically. But look, with Tottenham, they do have the sort of not excuse, but, Dominic Solanke is the man that was brought in to fix that sort of issue in terms of being able to get the ball in the back of the net. And he's gone, and he's absent for this game. He was injured. And that opening day, they had him, but it was, his first game for the club, and, it was just one performance, and it was not enough to really to criticize this Tottenham team so far. But it is sort of the same sort of issues for Tottenham, just not being able to finish. And this started the season, last season they were able to get off to a great start to the season. And then eventually, they fell off because of, the depths and how high intensity that they play. And, players started getting tired now. Now, so far, this started the season. It hasn't been anywhere near so far as, already 2 games that they've dropped points, 1 loss. Now, they've had, they've had their issues with Newcastle in the past. Some serious, severe issues. Really some bad losses to Newcastle. But again, it's just disappointing for Tottenham. And I can't just say Solanke is the answer, because that opening day, again, I don't know. I'm mixed about Solanke, actually. I think he'll come good eventually for Tottenham with his physical nature and the quality that he has. But as a whole, Tottenham need to be more clinical with their opportunities, or this is going to be a long season for them. They need to be more clinical with their opportunities. And then defensively, you need to be, they need to have more, look, I'm not going to say that they need to play, a lower line, if that's how Ange Postecoglou wants to go about it. Okay. But as a unit, they need to have a better understanding, and maybe it needs to be coached to them in certain periods that it's okay to drop off. It's okay in certain periods to drop off. Going back to that Newcastle-Chelsea game, playing with 9 men, I think it's ridiculous that they didn't drop off. Ange Postecoglou, I didn't understand that. Now he defended himself after the game, saying, well, even with 5 men, that's how we want to go about it. But come on, that's suicide. And in certain aspects, in general, how high that they play, sometimes it is suicide. Especially when you don't have Van de Ven, when you don't have the guy that's supposed to get you out in these sort of dangerous sort of situations. You need to be a little bit more balanced. You need to have an understanding as a team. And overall, and again, that ended up costing them a combination of that high line. And then, obviously, the big thing is not being able to get the ball in the back of the net, not having that finishing touch. It was really cost Tottenham so far in this season. It's 4 games. Now, going back to that final goal, I mean, it was just purely poor defending there in that high line. Romero does not look back. He's sort of trying to, doesn't really have control, or he's kind of trying to play them, them off. Dragusin, Porro, Udogi, they're all tracking the run while Romero kind of steps up initially, sort of trying to, allow that to be offsides. I believe it was, I forgot, someone gets in behind. I think it's Willick. Willick is the one that gets in behind. And then Alexander Isak, tucks it away. And again, Newcastle is going to take it. Both goals against the run of play. I do have to say, though, Newcastle overall haven't had the most successful it hasn't been poor. Newcastle so far, they've had 7 points, which is a good start for them. But the performances against Tottenham in past, they've been able to dominate Tottenham. In that opening day against Southampton, they got dominated, but they did have a red card, but they got dominated. And then against Bournemouth, it was a pretty even game overall, which, Bournemouth is a decent team. Going away to Vitality Stadium is not the most simple of matches. But yeah, I don't know about this Newcastle team. They didn't bring in any signings. I'm interested to see if they can reach the sort of heights that they had before this last season. I don't know. I'm not most sold on them, I have to say. The performances have not been great, but what's most important is that they do have 7 points and they do have a brilliant manager in Eddie Howe, and I continue to look forward to seeing them progress in the season. And then as far as Tottenham, the main issues with them, and it'll be interesting to see how Anja Postecoglou sort of tries to get out of the situation that they're in. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll discuss Erik ten Hag's, reign at Manchester United, or I say reign like he's already been sacked, future at Manchester United.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we discussed Newcastle defeating Tottenham 2-1. We move on to talk about Erik ten Hag and whether or not he will be gone before Christmas. And I have to say, since I've been hopped on GSMC, I have joined the company and started doing my live shows. I've had to talk about Erik ten Hag almost every other day. I mean, he's always been on the news, and that past game that they lost to Liverpool 3-0, and then that very poor loss that they had of Brighton, some critical mistakes from ten Hag in that game. Now with them starting with 2 losses and 3 games. Look, Erik ten Hag came into the season on the back foot. In terms of last season, he was very closely sacked. I mean, they had to do an end of season review, and it took them weeks before they decided to retain Erik ten Hag, and it was a big mess. But it was clear, it was reported that they talked to other candidates. It was reported that they talked to McKenna. There was candidates that they went out and spoken to, and you don't normally do that if you have a manager that you're comfortable with. So clearly United have some sort of discomfort with Erik ten Hag, no matter what they say, no matter what Ineos came out with the trying to back him or not. Erik ten Hag is on the front seat and on the hot seat, and now starting off the season with 2 losses in 3 games. Some people in other clubs, Erik Ten Hag would probably be already gone. If this was the Roman Abramovich Chelsea, Erik Ten Hag would be gone after 3 games now. This would be the moment. Or to be honest, he would not even gotten this to these 3 games. He would have been gone way back. But if they decided to be a little bit more patient and gave him up to this season, he'd be gone now. Look, he can be gone before Christmas. I don't know. Now they do have an easier set run of games. They got the Europa League fixtures that they have to manage, but they take on Southampton, Palace, these next 2 games. This could give them sort of a run, but then they got Tottenham, Villa, Brentford, West Ham, Chelsea. It can cause them that can cause them a little bit of trouble. Oh wow! Will it be gone for Christmas? It's very difficult. There's so much pressure on him. There is so much pressure on him, and he's making critical mistakes, and he's almost sacking himself in some of the mistakes that he's made up to this point. Especially in that Brighton game, the late game substitutions, the starting lineup not playing with a striker. The Manchester United CEO Omar Berrada came out saying, Erik Ten Hag has our full backing. We're very happy with the decision to give Ten Hag a new contract. Erik is our full backing, and we worked very closely together in this transfer window. We're going to continue working very closely with him to help him get the best results out of the team. Do you still believe in Erik? Absolutely. We think Erik do we still believe in Erik? Absolutely. We think Erik is the right coach for us, and we're fully backing him. And then Erik Ten Hag, some of the comments he's made too have been so, been so sort of condescending, talking about, the trophies that they've won, and they've been really successful because of that. When they finished 8th this past season, some of the comments that he makes too is just so frustrating if you're a United fan, and comments that if you're on the United board, you're not wanting to hear. And I do think the pressure is getting to... No, I don't think the pressure is getting to... Yeah, no, I think the pressure is getting to him. And you can see that from the decision making. And then you have that sort of someone looking over his back shoulder, and Van Nistelrooy, which we don't really know. Was Erik Ten Hag really involved in bringing him into the staff, or was that a Manchester United decision? Is that a sort of Manchester United insurance plan for them? If they sack Erik Ten Hag, Van Nistelrooy will be the interim manager, and they can see whether or not Van Nistelrooy has the sort of potential to be a Manchester United manager, maybe a similar situation to Ole. I do think that also adds some pressure. There's just so many storylines there, and it's the same old with Manchester United. They've been so disappointing so far at the start of the season. The Liverpool game, you're thinking Jurgen Klopp, the legend of Liverpool, leaves. Now you finally have a chance to start really competing with them, game in, game out, league out. And then, that opening day game against Arne Slot, they come in, that Liverpool team come in, and they smack you at Old Trafford. You're thinking, oh my God, it's the same old. Despite Arne Slot coming in and Jurgen Klopp leaving, Liverpool are still dominating and owning us, and it's really, man, the standards of the club has dropped so massively since Alex Ferguson has left. And I do have to say, Erik Ten Hag, is he good enough for Manchester United? Who knows? I mean, he's done well at Ajax, but it's just not been good enough, and he hasn't been coaching good enough. But these problems, no matter what manager you bring in, I don't think there's just a systemic issue in the way Manchester United is run, everything about the club, and you bring in this sort of new ownership group or new footballing operations, and you're seeing some of the same old mistakes and same old rubbish that you see from, that previous Glazer ownership, which makes me think they still have some sort of role in terms of how United is being run. It's just been poor all around. And then, okay, so we talked about the United-Liverpool game. The Brighton game, it was coming. Brighton, they got the late winner. There was some bad mistakes from Erik ten Hag. And even that opening day against Fulham, they weren't very impressive. That opening day against Fulham, it was 0-0. It took them a long time to get that, to open up that their season with the goal. It was a late goal from Xerxes that came off the bench. But you see in those sort of second half, before that goal, Fulham had multiple opportunities in the counter-attack, sort of 2-on-1, 3-on-1, and then they could have really, made United pay. But instead, Fulham just didn't get that last ball right, real lack of quality for them in transition, and then United eventually get that a goal. But overall, 3 disappointing performances. It's not been good enough whatsoever for Manchester United. And the international window comes at a time for United where they can sort of do a reset. But looking forward, you don't see how they'll turn it around. You don't see how they'll develop that sort of consistency. And you see some real issues. Marcus Rashford has... Okay, another thing with Erik ten Hag is his over-reliance on Marcus Rashford. How is Rashford still starting? He has not done anything in the past year. You got Garnacho, you got Amad Diallo. Those are clearly your two best wingers, most informed wingers. Rashford, Erik ten Hag is sort of living off Rashford, and Rashford is trying to kill him. I mean, it's just not been good enough. Marcus Rashford has not been good enough. He should not be getting in. And again, when I say Erik ten Hag is sacking himself, it's so many mistakes that he is making. And then some of the things that he's saying in the press. But yeah, and Mason Mount, he's been injured. But again, that's sort of another player that has not been good enough for Manchester United. Again, the manager has culpability, but the players need to show up. Bruno Fernandes needs to be more consistent instead of wailing on the ground. Casemiro, an experienced sort of player, he can't be making those sort of mistakes in midfield that he's been making. Kobe Mainoo, okay, yeah, he's young and we shouldn't be too critical to him, and he has great quality, but he couldn't defend to save his life. I spoke about Rashford. He's not good enough. Xerxes will give him some time, okay, to adjust to the Premier League. Onana, last season he was horrible. So many mistakes. So far this season, that was a mistake on that third goal to Liverpool for Salah. That was horrible goalkeeping there. Staying on the line, and on top of that, being caught on the far post, leaving the near post open on a shot that wasn't even in the corner from where it was taken. Not even in the corner. Should be saving that. The players need to, sort of step up their game too. The players need to show that they're not that they're not ball jobs. They need to step up as well, because, the players have some culpability in this as well. And yeah, Luke Shaw, some of the injured players needs to return as well. I'm speaking of Luke Shaw, Leno Yoro, so Dalot can play in a sort of natural position, and Mazraoui can be used as what he was brought in for depth. Matthias de Ligt, he'll get more adjusted into the Premier League. We'll see what he is for Manchester United. But look, the players need to be better. But of course, Erik ten Hag is under huge pressure, and yeah, quite frankly, he'll be gone before Christmas. I mean, that's what it's looking like right now. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll react to some of the top soccer headlines. Before the break, we discussed Erik ten Hag being gone before Christmas, so we move on to talk about some of the top soccer headlines. And we have to start off with some interesting developments. So I never was able to get to this when talking about some of the late transfer window moves. But Steven Bergwijn, he moved from Ajax to Al Ittihad, age 26 years old. Age 26, he makes Saudi Arabia to play for Al Ittihad, and Ronald Koeman had some very harsh reaction to it, sort of slamming the transfer, and has essentially, banned him, from playing for the Netherlands. Ronald Koeman came out saying he's prioritizing financial ambition over the sporting aspirations, and then when asked about the Wijnaldum situation, which is different, obviously, Koeman said Jorginho Wijnaldum once went that way because he had a problem at Paris Saint-Germain. He could only go to the country to play football until January. In Bergwijn's case, is that he goes at the age of 26. Sporting ambition does not prevail. Not everyone thinks, fortunately, the same way. I think when you're 26, the main ambition should be sporting and not financial. But those are choices players make. He could have stayed at Ajax. He could have stayed at Ajax, couldn't he? And I think they pay okay at Ajax too. But yes, it's his choice. I haven't been in that situation myself. I could go to Barcelona. I think if Bergwijn could have gone to Barcelona, he wouldn't have gone to Saudi Arabia either. The book is basically closed for him, though. He has not contacted me about this. I think he knows how I think about this. Yeah, that was interesting. Wow. Look, surface level, I sort of agree with him in terms of, he's, the financial. He's at 26 years old. He shouldn't be, valuing financial ambition over the sporting aspirations. I think any of these players going to Saudi in sort of their young ages, I'm not going as far as Toni Kroos when I say it's a disgrace and all that. No, the money is a lot of money. At the end of the day, it's generational wealth, but you should be valuing your sporting ambition first before you make this financial decision. That should be something that comes later on. In my opinion, you shouldn't be making those sort of transfers. I agree in that aspect of it, but with the Netherlands, Steven Bergwijn, he has decided to make that move. Now, the part that I disagree with Ronald Koeman is essentially banning him from the national team. I think someone should get banned from the national team if they're just not good enough for not banned, but someone shouldn't be involved in the national team if they're just not good enough at the end of the day. And if he's playing in Saudi and he's still playing at the level of a Dutch international, because keep in mind, Steven Bergwijn, he started for Netherlands at this European Championship for multiple games, so he was an important part to that team. If he's still sort of continuing that, having that sort of talent and ability to perform, then I don't think you should be closing his door because of your own personal vendetta. And obviously, I agree with Ronald Koeman in terms of what he's saying, but you shouldn't have a vendetta sort of a player. As a national team manager, you shouldn't put your personal feelings, because that's what he's doing. He's putting his personal feelings in, punishing him because of his personal feelings and his personal opinion. For me, that's wrong at the end of the day. It's really, really wrong, and I hope, Ronald Koeman has sort of a second think about it, gets advised maybe from the Dutch Federation, and he sort of, backtracks on this, on what, his position is, because, again, it's a shame for someone who's good enough to play on the national team not being involved because of a personal opinion of the manager. and not because he thinks the player's not good enough, but he thinks the player doesn't believe the player made the right transfer choice. I don't agree with that portion of it. Koeman, going on talking about it, talked about how Virgil van Dijk is committing to play for the Netherlands until the 2026 World Cup. We had a Virgil van Dijk be a little bit, not straightforward with his future of the Dutch past the European Championship. And, Koeman, went on. He flew to Liverpool and had face-to-face talks with Virgil van Dijk, which is always good when when a manager does that, being able to face-to-face player, because it makes the player feel wanted. The communication can be straight-lined and better. And again, the big part of Virgil van Dijk, oh my God, he flew all the way to Liverpool to come see me, to come talk to me. It might make Virgil van Dijk feel more important and feel more connected to the Dutch team. But yeah, Koeman saying when discussing about Virgil van Dijk, he said, "I thought it was so important to go to him, to see and feel with him. Are you going to give it your all for another 2 years at the highest level? And do you still see a future for yourself?" And he does, and I do the same with him. All doubt is gone. He just goes on. He admitted he did not reach the level you would expect from him as a player. He admitted he did not reach the level you would expect for him as a player at the European Championship. As a captain, I think he did a great job, but perhaps as a result, he put too much energy into others rather than into himself. I do have to say, I don't think he had a poor European Championship. I thought he defended really, really well. I thought pretty well. I thought the Dutch defended pretty well, as a group. They did reach the semi-final, in which they made their sort of mistake on that final goal, allowing Ollie Watkins to get, or semi-final, I don't know if I said final, semi-final, but yeah, that game-winning late goal by Ollie Watkins, they didn't make that sort of mistake, but yeah, I didn't think, but, Virgil van Dijk, he has high expectations, high aspirations, and it's good to still see him involved in this team because, he sort of had a late start to his international career. Not that he wasn't capped early on, but we didn't really see him at a major international tournament till the World Cup in 2022. Van Dijk right now, he's 30. He's 33. His first international tournament was the 2022 World Cup, in which he was 31 or so. He was, he should have been involved in the 2021 Euros, but he picked up that ACL injury. But yeah, it's good to see him still involved, and we like to see him in America, sort of being the leader of that Dutch team in the 2026 World Cup. Leicester, they win their appeal and they'll avoid Premier League point deduction. They won their appeal because there was a decision that was made that could have led to a points deduction because they had an alleged breach of Premier League profit and sustainability rules. Leicester, they're back in the Premier League after winning the championship this past season, but and they appealed this on the basis that the independent commission ruling on the case did not have jurisdiction, which ended up being upheld by an independent appeal board. So yeah, Leicester, they will not be deducted points this season. Leicester said in a statement, Leicester City welcomes the appeal board comprehensive decision, which supports our consistently stated position that any action against the club should be pursued in accordance with the applicable rules. The Premier League also came out with a statement saying the appeal board's decision effectively means that despite the club being a member of the league from seasons 2019-20 to 2022-23, the league cannot take action against the club for exceeding the relevant PSR threshold in respect of the associated counting periods. Yeah, that's that's a lot of big words, and honestly, I don't understand exactly what Leicester City did, but they're not gonna have a point deduction. Tim Ream, speaking about the new manager getting hired, Mauricio Pochettino, not hired officially, but on the verge of being hired, said they're kind of in the dark, not really knowing what's going on. He said, Tim Williams said, "We know as much as everybody else. We were updated a few weeks ago that the search was moving in a positive direction, and at the point, that's where everybody's at. We feel and have been told that when something happens, we will know, and everybody else will know pretty quickly after. So we are updated, but we have not been told anything is final up to this point. We know a lot of sources came out saying Pochettino has agreed to become the new manager of the USMNT in August, but the contract has yet to be signed because of a contractor issue. Chelsea have given with the fact that he left mid contract at the end of this last season. And yeah, it's gonna be important. Mickey Vargas, he'll be the interim manager for this team as they prepare for friendlies against Canada and New Zealand, and we look forward to the official hiring for Mauricio Pochettino, so that he can really get into the team and make an impact, which I'm sure he will. Thank you guys for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.